All right, take two, because I just did one of these and I feel like I probably need to do a better job. So I just wanted to make it clear where I stand as a fan before tomorrow's podcast with my buddies, and we do our review of week one and where we think things are. I want to make it very clear that I love NASCAR. I've been a fan for 30 plus years. My family is from Bristol. I consider myself one of those dumb rednecks that NASCAR insulted Richard Childress with. I'm one of those fans that NASCAR says can't read. You know, my dad was a steelworker, construction guy. We didn't have a lot. My family is from Bristol. And I attended those races with my family, grew up, gave them our hard-earned money for tickets, merchandise. I have hundreds of die casts and merchandise, and I used to dedicate my weekends to watching this sport. So when I see that language from NASCAR executives, even though we weren't intended to see it, but now you have a really clear idea. If you ever thought that you were beneath them, or they thought you were just something that could be tossed away, it quantified it for you. So no matter what happens in this case, NASCAR has a lot of damage control to do at the end of the day when it's done. You know, when they say Richard Childress is just some dumb redneck that needs to be taken out, bagged, and flogged, they're not just talking about Richard. They're talking about you. They're talking about me as a fan. They're talking about my dad, who spent his hard-worked money after working, 40 plus hours, walking steel and everything else. They're talking about us when they say that you're just some stupid redneck. You're just somebody who can't read. They're not just talking about Richard, because Richard's the one, he's the redneck that they built this sport off the back of. Him, Richard Petty, Yarborough, Pearson, Tiny Lund, all these people were just dumb rednecks. And that's what they think of us today. They still think we're just stupid rednecks who can't read. And they toss anybody and anything aside that is not profitable for them or is not in line with their vision. Whether that's team owners like, I can't remember his name, but that own Furniture Row Racing. I mean, you're literally talking about a team that won your greatest prize only a handful of years ago, and they're out of business. That should not be possible. I just won the championship, and I came in second how many times? And I'm out of business because this model is so broken. Because to NASCAR, it doesn't matter that they lost him. He's just a number. NASCAR, to NASCAR, the team owners, the drivers, the sponsors, they don't care. And Jim France's own words, which were introduced in court today by Heather Gibbs, made it very clear that they don't give a shit about you, me, the teams that have invested 30 plus years. It's only what's good for NASCAR. Because Jim France personally told Joe Gibbs he was done negotiating. That if, during this last charter agreement, if he woke up and he only had 20 charters, fine. If he only had 30, fine. That means he doesn't give a shit about this sport. It's only about control. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. So if you're on NASCAR's side in this thing, I would love to hear from you as to why. Are you don't want to hear how the sausage is made? Or do you really think that they're not the bad guy here? Because it's very clear they are the bad guy. Even if they win this lawsuit, they're still the bad guy. They have put, in 15 years, they put 50 teams out of business with their business model. 50. That was introduced in court today. That's not my numbers. Those are facts. There are 50 teams that are not around, either for part-time or full-time, that are just gone in a 15-year period. How is that good for the sport? Look at the experience you and I as a fan get when we go to a track. Look at the experience we get on the, on the television with the content we get. We get less and less content from them every year. We get less and less from them when we go to an event. The ticket prices haven't really gone down, but the cost to go to a race event is astronomical. Yet when you show up, there's little to no hospitality events at the big events, like going to Bristol or the Coke 600 or the Daytona 500. These aren't these massive, for a top tier series, these aren't these massive marquee events that they should be. And so to see them toss people aside at every level, whether it's owners, drivers, sponsors, with the exclusivity agreements. Verizon was here at one point and they said, well, we got Sprint Nextel, so you got to go. Okay, well now Verizon's never really come back. They went to IndyCar and sponsored a whole damn series. Wasted opportunity. Nextel, just monster. Well, can't have that competing, all these different things. And so to see NASCAR refer to us, and when I say us, I mean essentially there's the France family and then there's everybody else. You know, when NASCAR calls you, again, I'm going back to my main point. When they say that Richard Childress is a stupid redneck, when they say, well, we don't have to worry about that because our NASCAR fans can't read, they're talking about us. I went to college. I own my own business. I've built my way up. These team owners that you are bashing in your emails and texts behind their backs, that you're wanting to you want them to work with you, right, to build the sport, but you're at the same time calling them dumb rednecks and hicks and, you know, all this and MFers. And these are the people that you built your sport on the back of. That without, there would be no NASCAR. Because, okay, just so you organized it and built some tracks. I don't show up to a race to see Jim France, Bill France Jr., Lisa Kennedy, Ben Kennedy, or any of the Phelps. I don't give a shit who they are. The perfect scenario, I don't need to know who they are. That's like going to an NFL game and being like, I really need to see Roger Goodell. I'm there to watch the team and battle it out with another team. When I show up to a NASCAR race and I walk through the doors of Bristol Bristol Motor Speedway, and I walk into that Coliseum and I see the wonder that is that track that SMI built up over the years. And yeah, they've fucked it up, but it's still a great racetrack. It's a one-of-a-kind experience. And I watched 43 gladiators at the time get in those cars and risk their lives. And I've watched some horrific wrecks there. You know, get around that place in 15 seconds. That's amazing. I'm not there because of NASCAR. I'm there because of those teams, those drivers, those sponsors. I'm there to root for that Chevy, that Ford. And I think NASCAR as a officiating body has lost sight of why fans show up at the end of the day. That's really the message, is they forgot who matters and who's important. And I'll just say this last piece, you know, I think without Denny Hamlin, regardless of whether you like him or not as a driver, Denny Hamlin, the businessman, with Actions Detrimental podcast over the last few years, has provided so much insight behind the scenes, especially during the charter negotiations, at his own expense, mind you. Yeah, he's doing this podcast and it's helping him, but I mean, when I say expense, he lost points that cost him this year and last year a chance at the regular season title. You can't feel like he really got a fair shake, and they had to watch their tail because they were engaged in a legal lawsuit that we're now watching unfold, because he was winning so much you couldn't deny him. They had to make it. You think NASCAR wanted to put together, here's Denny's greatest hits for 60 wins, while he's got them named in a lawsuit, and he's letting out all the dirty laundry of Jim France basically like blowing him off, saying, I don't have an answer for you on how we make it more profitable, nor does he care for that matter. As long as he gets what he wants, he doesn't care. So, yeah, I'm profoundly frustrated. You know, if you look at my posts on social media, when I say, I want to be clear, when I say I want NASCAR to burn, I'm talking about the France family specifically. And I don't mean like on fire. I mean like I want NASCAR torn to the ground. I want it destroyed as it is today, because it's broken. There's no question about it. If you think it's not broken, you are not paying attention. And I'm okay with whatever it takes to fix the problem. I'm tired of 15 plus bad years of leadership. We went from 11 in 2011 when Carl and Tony were battling it out, 8 million views per race, to less than 2 million views a race a lot of times this last year. Meanwhile, on the CW, the Xfinity series is getting 1 million, just over 1 million, sometimes F1. Like, numbers don't lie. You have clearly fucked this up as far as the Phelpses, you know, Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, Ben Kennedy, Lisa Kennedy, Jim France. Y'all have clearly messed this whole thing up, something that wasn't broken. And Brian too, but he's not there anymore, so you can only blame Brian for so much. You know, Brian hasn't been around for a while, so at this point, all the bad decisions are on their side. You know, you got rid of David Hoots. Mike Helton's sitting off to the side. You got rid of Robin Pemberton. You know, anybody that got in your way of your new age fan that you've been chasing, that doesn't give a shit about this sport, the generation you're chasing doesn't care about cars. But meanwhile, I'm 43. You decided 15 years ago when I was in my 30s you didn't give a fuck what I wanted as a fan. You already dismissed me like I didn't fucking matter and took me for granted. And I was your prime demographic then and you didn't give a shit. So, at some point, the rest of us, especially now that we've seen this set of, messages and emails and everything, do you honestly think, and again, if you are on their side, I would love to hear from you. I'd like to have an honest, open, educated debate. But if you're on their side, do you honestly think that after all this, and you can claim Twitter's not a real place, but at the end of the day, the people writing all this stuff on NASCAR Reddit, 1.5 million subscribers, Twitter, hundreds of thousands of people, depending on what you're seeing, are very much up in arms and pissed off about this. That stuff doesn't lie. NASCAR has a real perception problem. And I don't know how they fix it without massive leadership change and massive change in direction. They're doing things that nobody asked for. You lost $55 million on a street race that nobody asked for. You lost $6 million going to Mexico to race in Mexico that nobody asked for. That teams didn't ask for, the logistics of it. Meanwhile, you've neglected your own backyard. You only went to Bowman Gray and to North Wilkesboro to cut off the SRX. You're that afraid of a bunch of square car tomorrow looking IROC cars that you had to go where they possibly would go so you could slight Tony Stewart, who gave you the finger and left the sport because he was so tired of your bullshit, that this is what you've come to? Like, they're so afraid and they're making all the wrong decisions. I don't know who you put in charge. The dream scenario of like the Justin Marks, the Dale Juniors, that's not a reality. But you got to do something because what we're doing now doesn't work. If we do anything less than going back to a full points format, it would be a mistake. I would be okay with going back to the chase, but that's okay. But on bottom line, when this lawsuit's over, whether NASCAR wins or loses, if Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, or Jim France are still in charge in NASCAR in any way, I'm probably not watching because that tells me nothing is going to change. And as much as that saddens me, there are other things I can do with my time. Because you know what? NASCAR decided they don't need me. I'm just some dumb redneck. I can't read, so what the hell does it matter? Yeah, so I'm very animated about this topic. The people that are like, well, I hate Denny Hamlin, like, y'all just piss me off because you're the uneducated fan that NASCAR's talking about, and you just make the rest of us look bad. Truthfully, you're that dumb. Truthfully, and I'm not hurt. I mean it when I say you're dumb and stupid, because you are. You make the rest of us look bad because you're so ignorant. You can't separate Denny Hamlin, the businessman who's fighting for the betterment of the sport and long-term health, from Denny Hamlin, the driver who likes to instigate with you after he wins a race and talk shit just like Kyle Busch did. Kyle Busch, the businessman, Kyle Busch, the race car driver. You're so damn ignorant you can't separate the two that I'm ashamed to be in the same fan group with you, truthfully. So anyway, that's my soapbox. I've got a podcast tomorrow night. We're going to go over this week's testimony and all the high points. I got to thank all the NASCAR reporters who've been sitting in that courtroom. I wish it was televised so we could be there. I would love to have been covering it each night, but I don't feel like I should be parroting what they've been doing every night. That's not right. So we will give them credit when we talk about what they were able to capture and record in tomorrow's podcast, and we'll see you then. Thank you for your time.